Hey everybody, welcome back to another video here at homerecordingmadeeasy.com and here on my YouTube channel. And in this video, we're going to start to walk through now. This is the second video in my Faderport series. This is for the Faderport 16, where I'm going to walk you through some of the beginning features on how to use the Faderport. If you're someone that's considering getting a Faderport or someone who actually just got one, go back and watch the first video. You can click the link in the description box. It'll bring you out to the playlist where I show you to set it up, hook it up, get Studio One to communicate with it, update the firmware, and we walk through the general layout. This video, we're actually going to start using some of the stuff. So in this video, we're going to focus mostly on the right-hand side of the Faderport, where we talk about the transport section, the jog wheel, and some of the keys and how I would use them. So make sure you stick around for that. And before we get to that, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so you know when I'm posting new content, and stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to give you something else for free. So here we go. So down here in the bottom, pretty straightforward, right? We have our play button, stop button. We can turn our marker on and off here by using the cycle button. And if we want to fast forward or rewind, we can use these buttons here, right? We can also arm our tracks if we are recording. If we want to go back to the beginning of the song, we just hit these both together. Oops, whoops. Snap them both together and it returns to 0. That's what RTZ stands for. So that's pretty straightforward. Now, let's talk about these soft keys here above. We have these 8 soft keys here. Let's start with the master. So when we press the master and that lights up, if you look at the master fader all the way over here on the right-hand side of my console, if I take my jog wheel up here, hopefully my hand's not too much in the way, but if I take the jog wheel, you'll see that that will now adjust the volume of the master fader. Pretty slick, huh? And if I just push it, because this jog wheel also pushes in, it'll return it to 0. So if I turn it all the way down and returns to 0, that's what the master button does. If I come over here to the click, this will turn the metronome on and off. You can see that down here in the bottom section of the transport controls here in Studio One, that little triangle, that's our click track. We could turn our click track on and off there. We could turn that off. If we were to hit selection, pardon me, and let's say, let me zoom this in so you can see this. Here's one way this is used. So let's say we're selected on our kick track here, right? And if I zoom all the way in, I want you to see something here. Let me zoom all the way in. You see our kick track here that's highlighted, our selection. Okay, if I take the jog wheel, watch what happens. I can move my selection. See that? So you can select and then you can turn this and this will nudge it. That's a nice way to nudge audio, but I want to be careful because I don't want to throw my kick drum out of time here. Oops. Oh, Studio One, don't crash on me now. Studio One hardly ever crashes, but sometimes it does this little funky thing where the pinwheel just starts. And I don't know why. Doesn't respond. And if I click ignore, it should respond here in a second. Hopefully it will. There it goes. Anyhow, I don't know why Studio One does it every so often. Maybe it's a Mac thing. But anyway, I can turn the selection. See that? That's what that does. Let's not knock this out of time, yeah? Because then our kick drum will be out of time with the rest of the song. We don't want that. Definitely don't want that to happen, right? So let's make sure that we're in time here. So I'm going to, there we go, right there. And it snaps to the grid, right? And if you want to take off the grid, you just take that off and this will just slide around here. But let me go back. Let me just turn, there we go. We're in time now. There we go. Okay, let me just zoom out of there. So that's what the selection button does. Be careful with that. At least that's one way that you can use that. Marker, let's say you have your playhead here. Let me just delete this marker here. So let's say I put my playhead here and I want to put a marker. I hit the marker track. Right, did that work? Let me zoom out here. Okay, why isn't that working? That should work. It worked before. Marker. Oh, do I have to hit this? Yes, I got to press in the jog wheel. I'm sorry. I'm still getting new to the Faderport, so you're still learning it with me. Let me do that again. Let me stretch out the timeline so you can see that. So let's say I wanted to put a marker here because that's my first verse. Make sure marker is pressed, press in the jog wheel, and you'll see it'll put a marker here. If I want to put a marker over here, I could do that again. Press the marker, and there we go. See that? Just pressing the jog wheel. Pretty straightforward, right? That's what happens on that with the marker. I'll just right-click and delete. If you want to know how to delete markers, just highlight and right-click. Okay, those are the bottom keys, okay? Now, they're also multi-purpose keys at 5, 6, 7, and 8. So if I press my shift key, I don't remember what this does. Let me see. If I hit master, okay. Master is going to break What does it do? Oh, it puts over here like the scratch pad, I think, on the other side. That's weird. Click. Okay, click is going to open my marker, my tempo track. See that? Opens and closes my tempo track. Look at that. I didn't even realize that. Section opens up the arranger track. Marker opens the marker track. What does master do? What is master does something over here. I don't know if it breaks it here. It puts like I don't know if that's like the scratch pad. I'm not really familiar because I don't use that for songwriting, but that's what marker does. Well, no, excuse me. That's what master does. It's really kind of strange. Okay. Click track will open and close the tempo track. Selection will open the arranger track, and then marker will open the marker track. And again, I believe you can assign these things to anything you want, which we'll do in another video. That's when the shift key is enabled. See that? That's when the shift key is enabled. You press those things, that's what happens. When we take the shift key off, let me show you on the top level here what this is. I'm going to turn off marker. If I go to channel and I turn my jog wheel, you can see down in the console view. See in the console view how the channel changes? It follows the selection, and you can see across the top of the fader port, my channel select is going to. Cool. Right? There we go. If I go to zoom, or actually on channel, if I keep it on channel and I hit the bank buttons, I don't think that does anything, does it? Oh, it just banks, it banks my faders across my session. So here's, I know you can't see the scribble strips, the writing very well, but here's the select. It's all the way down to channel 16. If I bank over, now it's going, now this last fader is channel 17, channel 18, channel 19. So you just bank over one channel at a time. And that's what happens on the fader port, or I can go boom, 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 all the way back to channel 1. Okay. That's what channel does. If I hit zoom and I turn my jog wheel, watch what happens. I can zoom in and out on my timeline. Look at that. I don't like this. I use the W and the E key on my keyboard. It's just faster for me. But if you didn't want to do that, this is how you zoom in and out on the edit screen on the timeline. If I use my bank buttons, watch what this does. This will make the tracks smaller and bigger. If I'm pressing my right, it goes all the way up to extra large. If I press, I can even just hold it down. You don't even need to press it. You can just hold it. It goes down to minimal, or you can make them as big as you want. You can click them, or you can just hold and press. That's what that does under zoom. When I go to scroll, if I hit scroll and I do this, it scrolls my playhead just like that. I think this will scroll in the track. See that? It not only, let me open up. First, let me open up these tracks more so you can see them better. Let me show you what this does. Okay, so now if I go back to scroll and I hit my bank buttons, look what it does. It's going up and down the track. Scroll up and down the tracks, and the scroll is scrolling the playhead. So you can scroll your tracks, and then you can scroll your playhead. And then lastly, bank will just, what does bank do? I forget. Okay, yeah, so bank, when I have bank and I hit my arrow keys, it'll bank over. Remember when we had scroll, it was just banking over one track at a time on the fader port. When you hit bank, it banks over all 16 channels. So this is channel 1 here on my fader port through channel 16. If I hit bank, this is channel 16 to channel 30. Okay, and then my main fader's on 31. That's what happens in bank mode. But when you're in bank mode and you use your scroll wheel, it just goes one track at a time. Oh, but you know what you need to do? Here's a little trick for you, which I did not see in the manual. I figured this out by mistake. So I'm in bank mode, right? And let's say I'm all the way over to track 1, which is my kick track. That's what's selected in Studio One. Let me just close this channel editor. If I bank over on I hit the bank button. If I use the right key, it brings channel 16 over here all the way to channel 30, as I said. But as you can see in Studio One, it doesn't follow along. Track 1 is still selected on the screen, on my monitor, right? And that's a little off-putting. If you ever want to get back, all you got to do is press in this key, and you'll see that the fader port snaps back to channel 1. So let me go over again. I'm banked over to channel 16. If I want to get back to channel 1, I could hit this left arrow key. That brings me back to channel 1 on the fader port, or I can just press the scroll wheel in and that'll do that as well. Does that make sense? Now, when I'm on channel and I'm using this wheel here, if I go to bank, yeah, when I go to bank, it's doing the same thing. Okay, when I'm selecting one channel at a time. Now remember, the fader port only has 16 channels, at least this one does. So now I'm on channel 16 on the fader port, right? I'm on channel 16 on the screen. Don't know why that's turned on, that shouldn't be. But when I go over to channel 17, which is my bass guitar, you notice that the fader port doesn't move. Now I'm on channel 18 in Studio One. The fader port doesn't move. It doesn't automatically bank over. The way I figured out you need to do it, unfortunately, is again, once you get off past channel 16 and you go to channel 17 in Studio One, if you want to have the fader port physically reflect, push the jog wheel. And now you'll see channel 17 pops over here. And that's because I'm in bank mode. If I turn off bank mode, let me do this again. Hope that makes sense. Was that clear? I hope it's clear. If it's not clear, I apologize. Let me try to explain it again. So let's say I'm on channel mode and I'm scrolling over in Studio One and it's reflecting on the fader port and I get the channel, past channel 16, I'm on channel 17, but I don't see channel, I don't see, well, hold on a minute here. What am I doing here? What's going on here? Okay. Why is this thing not responding? Hold on. Oh, is it because my shift key? Let me just see here. Hold on. So now these buttons seem to be, okay. That was weird. Okay, so sometimes I feel like the buttons don't respond the way they're supposed to. Like I'm pushing buttons, they're not lighting up. I got to go to another button and then go back, and then they seem to snap into place. So just keep that in mind. Again, I don't know if that's a firmware issue. It could be a user error, you know, but just be aware of that. Sometimes I feel like I'll press a button, it doesn't work. I have to go to another button and then go back to it. It just doesn't light up. So anyway, let me go back. So we're on channel 1 here. If I scroll over with my scroll wheel, okay. Okay, scroll over here, over to channel 1. When I go over to channel 17, which is off the fader port because it's only 16 channels, well, I'm scrolling in Studio One, but the fader port's not advancing. If you want the fader port to advance, just press in the jog wheel, and that advances it and puts channel 16 over here and moves over. Okay, does that make sense? That's a little weird. At first, I was wondering why I'm turning the wheel and the faders aren't automatically moving. You have to press the jog wheel. Maybe there's another way to do it. You can leave comments below, but that's what I figured out. But just so you know. So what's nice about this is that you can just do everything in Studio One. You don't need to grab your mouse and move over and click your playhead. You can just do it all here in Studio One. So that's, you know, that's the modes here on how you use these top soft keys. Okay, channel, bank, scroll, zoom. Now, again, there's different functions. There's a second function. If I press the shift key and I hit the channel button, that opens and closes the inspector on the left side of Studio One. See that? And I assume you can map this to do anything you want. I think you could change that to make it whatever you want. I believe. That'll be in a later video once I figure that out. But for now, it's pretty handy. Inspector. Shift is lit. Zoom button will open and close the edit. Okay? And close that. Close that. Number 3, opens and closes your console. Very handy. Number 4, or the bank button, F4, is the browser, which is kind of handy. So with the shift key, you have the inspector on the first button, the zoom button becomes your editor, the scroll button becomes your mixer, and the bank button becomes your browser, and that's function 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, I believe you can make that do whatever you want. In a later video, I will show you how you can map these things. So if you don't want it to open and close your inspector, say you want it to do something else, I believe you can do that, if I'm not mistaken. So that's the soft keys, that's the transport, and here's the scroll wheel. Up top here, we have all our automation, okay, which is pretty self-explanatory. But once again, with the shift key, these do different things. So on the top button, again, I can't see it very well because of the dark here, but it's save. So if shift is lit and I want to save, I just shift the latch key. You'll see Studio One just saved on the screen. Redo and undo. So I can redo with its shift, will redo. So if I want to do, I don't know, what was the last thing I did? I don't know if it'll show it on the screen, but let's say I do, I don't know, something like this. I move that, and then I want to do undo, it'll bring it back. Or I could do redo, and it'll bring it back. See what I'm doing there on the bottom of the screen? Okay, so that's how you do that. So shift key is save, undo, redo. And then there's 3 user buttons. The bottom keys can be programmed to do something else. I'm not sure what they do right now to be, oh, what does that do? Oh, that right here in the background vocal track, you can see what that button does. It does something with the inputs. You can see it's changing the background vocal track. It's just showing, it's got some different view in the way that's doing that. Pretty cool. The right button, I'm not sure what that does. You can program that. Or actually what the right button does is turns the snap to grid on and off. Look at the top of the screen here in Studio One. It's turning off, it's toggling snap to grid on and off. Okay, and then the read button is changing the way the screen scroll. It's the auto scroll. Okay, so right now that's defaulted to auto scroll, snapping grid, and something there with the way it's displaying the parameters here on a track. And again, I believe you can program that to anything you want to do. Okay, so you take the shift key off. The shift key, when it's not lit, is whatever is on the button. That's the function. When the shift key is lit, it's what's underneath, and then you can program the buttons. So that is the entire transport and the soft keys and the scroll wheel and how you use them. Once again, these little buttons above the shift key just represent what you see here on the fader port, the fader positions on the fader port. Pardon me. So if you're in all, that's showing all of your audio tracks. Let me open up my mixer again so you can see that. That's going to be shift, and the scroll button opens my mixer, right? Take off my shift key. So all is going to be, anything that's in my console is going to reflect here on the faders and the fader port. If I just go to VCAs, I don't have any VCAs in this session, but if I did, only those faders would show. Buses, I have 2 buses that are here in my session. They're labeled drum bus and percussion bus, and those are these 2 buses here. You can see them in Studio One as I'm moving them. See that? Lovely, right? And if you want to bring these back to 0, I believe you hold the shift. Is this it? No, maybe it's link. There's a button, a series of buttons you hold, and you just lightly touch the fader and it snaps back to 0. I'll get that in the next video because I don't remember it off the top of my head. But anyway, those all are our buses here. Okay, if I go to VI, virtual instruments, the faders are all at 0 because I don't have any virtual instruments in this session. And then audio are all the audio tracks. So what I typically do, if you have buses and VCAs and instruments, and if you want to see everything in your you want to see everything on your fader port, you just hit all, and that will reflect everything. But if you just want to work on certain groupings of faders, you can do that here as well. Okay, so let's see. Oh, and lastly, up top here, we'll take a look at these keys here. So this is the track view. When I hit track view, you can, all my scribble strips are represented to what's in my console: kick, snare, top, snare, bottom, hats, tom 1, tom 2, so on and so forth. That reflects what's going on in my console view here. If I go to edit plugins, we'll talk about edit plugins in another video. That's going to allow us to open and close plugins. We'll do that next. And then we have, what is this? Oh, our send. So if I had any sends, then these would become the send levels. I don't have any set up in this session, but it's really cool that you can do that. And then panning, again, I showed you in the last video, the faders will represent the panning positions. However, I don't particularly like that. I would rather come over here, go over to my channel with my scroll wheel, and I like using this pan pot in the top left-hand corner of the screen. It's just off frame here, but that will do the panning. I think panning should be with a pot myself and not with, you get more accurate than with a fader, but you can do whatever you want. And when I turn this pan pot, because I'm in the pan mode, look at channel 1, fader 1. As I turn the pan pot, the fader's going up and down along with it. Right? So it's just a matter of how you really want to work is, is dependent on how you want to use the panning. Okay. And then you keep it in track view, and these are all the volumes. So when you start mixing. So most times I have it in track mode, all the fader, all button here, so I can see all of that. And that's typically how I use it. I'm constantly using the transport, obviously, and then I find myself a lot of times holding the shift key and then opening up my windows like this, just kind of doing it one hand at a time, kind of like that. That's how I kind of do it. So you can hold it and let go, and it's a momentary, or you can latch it by just doing that. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So that is the whole right side of the fader port: transport, soft keys, scroll wheel, and the different functions and modes and how you open and close windows. Next video, we'll take a look at the other side of the fader port, and we'll start talking about plugin control and how you can map plugins and control your plugin parameters right from the fader port. So I want to thank you so much for watching this video. So as I said in the beginning, I'm going to give you another free gift. Thank you so much for checking out this entire video. So like I said earlier, if you have not been to homerecordingmadeeasy.com, I want to give you a free mixing course. Go right to the homepage. It's worth $100. It's my gift to you just for visiting homerecordingmadeeasy.com. And you can use that mixing course along with your Faderport, and you can follow along with me. And if you dig that course and you want to take some of my other paid training courses, and I have a lot of courses that are specific to Studio One training, perfect for you beginners. I want to give you sorry about that. I want to give you a coupon code. The coupon code is YouTube25. That will take 25% off any one of the training courses on my website. Use that at checkout. Thank you so very much for watching. And until the next Faderport video, I've been Dave with homerecordingmadeeasy.com. I'll see you guys very soon. Take care, everybody.